They refused to treat her wounds, said she wasn't worth the medical supplies, that real soldiers needed saving, that she could wait, that she'd probably bleed out anyway. So they left her there, torn open, half conscious, collapsed behind an armored truck while the last chopper lifted off without her. But what they didn't know, what would freeze every single one of them when her voice came crackling over the radio 18 hours later, was that the woman they left to die was a Navy SEAL. She didn't just survive, she stitched herself back together, hunted down the men who set the trap, and saved the same convoy that abandoned her. But before we show you how Bryn Callahan fought her way through a kill zone with 12 bullets and iron will, you need to understand where this story begins. Not in the dust and blood of Afghanistan, but in a memory, a promise made over a grave. The Pacific wind cut across the beach at dawn, cold enough to sting exposed skin. Bryn Callahan stood at the water's edge, boots sinking slightly into wet sand, staring at the horizon where dark water met darker sky. 28 years old, 5'7", 140 pounds of muscle, scar tissue, and something harder than both. 4 tours in Afghanistan, 47 confirmed kills as a sniper. A combat medic rating that made her more valuable than half the doctors stateside. And still, every morning, she came here to remember. Her father's voice played in her head like a recording worn thin from repetition. Pain is just electricity, Bryn. Neurons firing. Your brain trying to protect you. But you're stronger than your brain. She'd been 8 years old, skin knee bleeding through her jeans, tears hot on her face. He'd crouched down, still in his BDU pants and tan combat boots, fresh off a training exercise. Chief Petty Officer Daniel Callahan, Navy SEAL, the kind of man who made other men stand straighter just by walking into a room. "You gonna cry?" he'd asked. "It hurts." "Of course it hurts. That's how you know you're alive." He'd clean the wound with water from his canteen. No gentleness, no coddling, just efficiency and a lesson embedded in every motion. "Someday, Bryn, you're gonna hurt worse than this. Way worse. And when that day comes, remember, pain is temporary, quitting is forever." Mogadishu, 1993. Black Hawk Down. He'd been one of the 18 Americans who didn't come home. She'd been 13 years old, standing in a cemetery in Arlington, watching them fold a flag that would never bring him back. The last thing he'd said to her, phone call from some forward operating base she couldn't pronounce. "Take care of your mom, kiddo. And remember, we don't leave people behind. Not ever." Bryn turned away from the ocean. Behind her, the Naval Special Warfare Center rose like a monument to controlled violence. Obstacle courses, shooting ranges, the grinder where men broke themselves trying to become something more. She'd done it, broken herself and rebuilt stronger. First woman in her SEAL team to complete Hell Week without recycling. First to score expert marksman on the M110 semi-automatic sniper system. First to make the instructors forget she was female and just see her as a shooter. But memory had a way of keeping you humble. She walked across the sand toward the parking lot where her truck waited, and that's when she saw him, leaning against the chain-link fence, arms crossed, watching her with eyes that had seen too much and forgotten nothing. Colonel Duke Maddox, 68 years old, ramrod straight posture that 30 years of retirement hadn't softened, silver hair cut high and tight, a face carved from granite and old wars. "You always this early, petty officer?" His voice carried the gravel of 1,000 cigarettes and 100 classified operations. "Could ask you the same thing, Colonel. I don't sleep much anymore. Brain keeps replaying missions that happened before you were born." He pushed off the fence, moved toward her with the careful economy of someone whose joints had earned every ache. "Your team chief says you're rotating back to Afghanistan next month." "That's the plan." "FOB Ghazni, convoy escort duty." Bryn stopped. "That's not public information." Duke smiled. thin, knowing. Nothing's private if you know who to ask. I did 3 years in Berlin during the wall crisis, another 2 in Cuba during the missile standoff. You learn real quick. Information is the only currency that matters. With respect, sir, why are you here? Because I knew your father. The words landed like a punch. Not well. Met him once, actually. 1992. He was running through advanced demolitions training. I was teaching a seminar on Cold War interrogation resistance, Soviet techniques, the kind of thing they don't put in manuals. Duke moved closer, close enough that Bryn could see the old scars on his knuckles, the slight cant to his nose from a break that had healed wrong decades ago. Daniel Callahan asked me a question after that seminar. Asked what you do when you're alone in enemy territory. No backup, no extraction, no hope. What did you tell him? I told him you become the enemy's worst nightmare. You survive, and you make them regret every second they left you breathing. Duke's eyes locked onto hers. He told me about you. Said you were tougher than half his teammates, even at 13. Said someday you'd make one hell of a SEAL. Bryn's throat tightened. She forced it down, swallowed the emotion like bitter medicine. He also said something else. Duke reached into his jacket, pulled out a small pouch, military green canvas, weathered and stained. He said if anything ever happened to him, and if you ever made it into the teams, someone should give you this. He held it out. Bryn took it, unzipped the pouch slowly. Inside, 50 feet of braided fishing line. A Leatherman multi-tool with the blade edge still sharp. A Striker fire starter wrapped in paracord. And a small metal tag stamped with words she'd heard her father say 100 times. We don't leave people behind. Your father gave that to me in '93, week before Mogadishu. Duke's voice went quiet, distant. Made me promise if he didn't come back, I'd find you when you were ready. Took me 28 years to pay that debt, but I always pay my debts. Bryn closed her fingers around the pouch. Why now? Because Afghanistan is going to hell. The drawdown is a mess. Taliban are moving back into territory we bled for. And convoy duty? Duke shook his head. That's the kind of mission where people get left behind. I've seen it before. Berlin, Congo, Panama. Doesn't matter the decade, story's always the same. I can handle myself. I know you can. Your scores prove it. Your record proves it. But handling yourself alone is different than surviving when the whole system decides you're expendable. He met her eyes. You're a woman in the teams, petty officer. Some men will never see past that, and those are the men who leave you bleeding in the dirt if it suits them. The words hit harder than Bryn wanted to admit. Duke turned to leave, then paused. You know what your father's last words were to me? Take care of the ones who come after, the ones who'll fight the wars we couldn't finish. He walked away. 10 steps, 20. Colonel, Duke stopped. Thank you. He nodded once, kept walking. Left Bryn standing there with her father's survival kit in her hands, in a cold wind pushing in from the Pacific. She didn't know it then, but that moment, that gift, would be the only reason she'd survive what was coming. Forward Operating Base Ghazni, Afghanistan, present day. The sun wasn't even up yet when the world caught fire. What intelligence had designated as a cleared transit route, Sector 7, Grid Bravo 4, turned into a slaughterhouse in the space of 3 seconds. One moment, 6 Humvees and 2 troop carriers rolling steady through the pre-dawn gray. The next, IEDs erupting like the earth itself was vomiting rage. The lead vehicle lifted off the ground, 10,000 pounds of armored steel and human bodies spinning sideways, engulfed in orange flame and black smoke. The shockwave hit Bryn's Humvee like a physical fist, slamming her against the doorframe hard enough to crack her helmet against metal. Her ears rang, high-pitched whine drowning out everything except her own heartbeat. Training kicked in before thought, before fear, before anything human. Bryn shoved the door open, boots hitting dirt as the second explosion tore through the convoy's rear vehicle. Dust and debris turned the air into a choking fog. Somewhere in the chaos, men screamed. Radios crackled with overlapping voices shouting coordinates and casualty reports and desperate pleas for air support that wouldn't arrive in time. She ran toward the burning lead vehicle. Smoke obscured everything. Heat radiated in waves that felt like standing too close to an open furnace. Through the haze, Bryn saw movement. A figure crawling out of the wreckage, uniform on fire, arm bent at an angle that made her stomach clench. Private First Class Cole Hartley, 19 years old, fresh out of basic, third mission in country. His face, so young it still carried baby fat in the cheeks, twisted in agony as he dragged himself forward. One leg limp, left arm cradled against his chest, blood pouring from a gash above his eyebrow. Bryn reached him in 4 strides, grabbed his tactical vest, started pulling. "I got you, Cole. I got you." He tried to speak, coughed blood instead. Behind them, the Humvee's fuel tank caught. The explosion threw Bryn forward, her shoulder taking the impact as she twisted to shield Cole's body with her own. Something sharp, shrapnel, debris, a piece of the vehicle itself, punched through her lower abdomen just above her hip. Another fragment sliced deep into her right thigh. White-hot pain detonated through her nervous system. Bryn bit down on her tongue hard enough to taste copper, kept moving, dragged Cole another 10 feet, 15, got him behind the burned-out husk of a supply truck that offered at least the illusion of cover. She looked down, blood spreading dark across her desert camo blouse, already soaking through. She pressed her hand against the wound, felt the slick heat of her own insides trying to become outsides. "Stay here," she told Cole. Her voice sounded distant, muffled. "Don't move." She turned back toward the kill zone. 2 more figures struggling in the smoke. Sergeant Jack Drummond, 34, squad leader, father of 3. Corporal Lauren Bailey, 26, communications specialist, engaged to be married. Bryn stumbled toward them. Each step sent lightning through her leg. The wound in her abdomen pulsed with every heartbeat, each pulse pumping more blood into fabric that couldn't hold it. She reached Drummond first, unconscious, shrapnel embedded in his shoulder and chest. She grabbed his vest, started pulling, 50 pounds of dead weight plus another 60 in gear. Her thigh screamed, her core muscles spasmed around the hole in her gut. "Move, just move." 10 feet, 20. Got him to cover, back for Bailey. The woman was conscious, trying to crawl, leaving a trail of blood from a leg wound that had severed something major. Bryn looped an arm under Bailey's shoulders, half carried, half dragged her to relative safety. 4 people, 4 lives pulled from the fire. Bryn collapsed against the supply truck, pressed both hands against her abdomen. Blood welled between her fingers. Warm, too warm. The kind of warmth that meant internal bleeding, organs compromised, clock ticking. She reached for the medical pouch on her belt, hands shaking, vision starting to blur at the edges. Pulled out a tourniquet, wrapped it high on her thigh above the arterial bleed, cranked it tight enough to make her vision white out for 3 seconds. When she could see again, she noticed the others. 50 meters away, medics had set up a triage point. Stretchers laid out on canvas tarps. 3 combat medics, couldn't have been older than 22, 23, sprinting between the wounded, trying to sort the salvageable from the lost with nothing but instinct and insufficient training. Bryn tried to stand, her leg folded. She caught herself on the truck's fender, used it to lever upright, started moving toward the medics, each step a negotiation with a body that wanted to quit. She made it 30 feet before 2 of the medics broke away from the triage point and ran toward her. For 3 seconds, Bryn thought they were coming to help. Then they reached Cole Hartley first, peeled him off the ground without even looking at her, rushed him toward the stretchers without a word, without acknowledgement, like she was invisible. Bryn stood there, swaying, blood soaking through her uniform, breathing ragged. One of the medics glanced back, young face, scared eyes, looked at her for maybe 2 seconds. "She's conscious," he called to his partner. "Not critical." They turned away. Bryn tried to speak, opened her mouth. No words came, just a wet cough that tasted like iron and failure. Behind the medics, a figure emerged from the command Humvee, Major Vincent Caldwell, 42 years old, logistics commander, career officer who'd spent more time behind desks than in combat zones. He surveyed the triage point with the cold calculation of a man doing math with human lives. "Prioritize the fighters," Caldwell barked. "We don't have enough supplies for everyone. Combat effective personnel first." Another medic approached Bryn, this one older, maybe 28, tired eyes that had seen too many casualties and not enough miracles. "Ma'am, you need to move out of the lane. We have critical incoming." "I need," Bryn's voice cracked. "I need a field dressing, shrapnel, arterial bleed." The medic looked at her wounds, looked at her face. Some calculation happened behind his eyes, some decision made in the space between heartbeats. "You're ambulatory. That means you're not priority." He gestured toward the burned-out vehicles. "Move behind cover. We'll get to you when we can." "I'm a Navy SEAL, combat medic, the woman who just saved 4 lives while bleeding out." But the words wouldn't come. Bryn's knees buckled. She went down hard, shoulders slamming into gravel, tasted dust and blood, watched boots move past her, stretchers, voices shouting medical terminology that her own training recognized even as her consciousness started to fragment. Someone grabbed her arm, not gently, dragged her sideways, behind the burned-out supply truck, out of sight, out of mind. "Can't have her blocking the lane," a voice muttered. Male, distant, already moving away. Bryn lay there, pressed her hands against the wound in her abdomen, felt blood pulse between her fingers with each heartbeat, each pulse slightly weaker than the last. Above her, the sky lightened from black to gray, dawn coming. Beautiful, indifferent. She heard rotor wash, the heavy thump of Black Hawk blades cutting air, evacuation choppers inbound, voices coordinating, stretchers loading, the organized chaos of a medevac operation where every second mattered, and there were never enough seats for everyone who needed them. Bryn tried to call out, managed a sound somewhere between a cough and a whisper. No one heard. No one looked. The first chopper lifted off. Gone. The second loaded fast. Critical casualties, the ones who die in the next 10 minutes without surgical intervention. The third took the walking wounded. The fourth, the overflow. And then the sound changed, engines cycling down instead of up. The last chopper, the absolute final bird out, spooling up for departure. Bryn dragged herself to her elbows, looked toward the landing zone, saw medics securing the last stretcher, saw Major Caldwell climbing aboard, radio in hand, directing the operation like a conductor leading an orchestra. And she saw one more figure, Colonel Duke Maddox, 68 years old, retired but attached to the convoy as a tactical advisor, shoulder bleeding from shrapnel, face pale, being helped toward the chopper by 2 soldiers. Duke's head turned, scanned the area, found her. Their eyes met across 50 meters of dust and death. Bryn saw his mouth form her name, saw him try to pull away from the soldiers helping him, saw Major Caldwell step between them, hand on Duke's chest, physically blocking him. Caldwell said something, short, sharp, in order. Duke lunged, threw a punch that caught Caldwell in the jaw, and sent the major stumbling back 3 steps. 2 soldiers immediately grabbed Duke's arms, held him, started forcing him toward the chopper. Duke fought them, 68 years old and wounded, and he fought like a man half his age, screaming something Bryn couldn't hear over the rotor wash. Then Caldwell was there, in Duke's face, shouting, pointing toward the chopper. The 2 soldiers dragged Duke backward, up the ramp. Duke's eyes never left Bryn's. Not when they pulled him into the bird. Not when they strapped him into a seat. Not when his mouth formed two words she could read even from this distance. I'm sorry. The ramp lifted. The chopper rose, dust and debris swirling in a maelstrom that forced Bryn to close her eyes. When she opened them again, the sky was empty, the triage point abandoned, the kill zone silent except for the crackle of fires still burning in destroyed vehicles. 43 soldiers evacuated, 4 dead left behind for graves registration, and 1 woman, alive, bleeding, forgotten. Bryn's hand slipped on the blood-slick fabric of her uniform, fell to the dirt beside her. She stared at the way her fingers twitched slightly, still working, still fighting even when the rest of her wanted to quit. Her vision narrowed, darkness creeping in from the edges like a slow-motion implosion. But in that darkness, something else emerged. A voice, her father's voice, clear as the day he'd crouched beside her with her skinned knee. Someday you're gonna hurt worse than this, Bryn. And when that day comes, remember, you already survived the worst. Everything after is just practice. She blinked, forced her eyes to focus, turned her head slowly, every muscle screaming, until she could see her tactical vest. The pouches attached to it, medical supplies, limited, but there. And clipped to her belt, barely visible under the blood-soaked fabric, the small green canvas pouch Duke had given her father's survival kit. Bryn's jaw clenched, teeth grinding together hard enough to make her molars ache. They left her, decided she wasn't worth the space on a chopper, wasn't worth the medical supplies, wasn't worth saving. Fine, she'd save herself, and then she'd save every single one of them, whether they deserved it or not. Because that's what her father taught her. That's what Duke reinforced. That's what being a SEAL meant, even when they leave you. Bryn dragged herself to a sitting position, propped her back against the supply truck, reached for her medical pouch with hands that shook, but didn't quit. Opened it, assessed what she had. 2 field dressings, 1 pack of quick clot combat gauze, 3 morphine auto-injectors, a trauma shear, a roll of medical tape. Not enough, not even close, but it would have to be enough. She cut away the fabric around her thigh wound first, exposed the gash. Deep, ugly, arterial spray reduced to an ooze by the tourniquet, but still bleeding. She pressed the quick clot gauze directly into the wound, packed it tight. The hemostatic agent burned like someone had poured acid into raw meat. She bit her sleeve, screamed into the fabric, waited. 30 seconds, the bleeding slowed. Not stopped, but slowed. She wrapped a field dressing over it, tied it tight enough to make her leg go numb below the knee. The abdominal wound was worse. She couldn't see how deep it went, couldn't tell if it had perforated her intestines, but she could feel the warmth, the wrongness, the way her body was trying to protect itself by shutting down non-essential systems. Bryn reached into Duke's survival pouch, pulled out the Leatherman, opened the blade. It was clean, relatively. It would have to do. She looked around, found a piece of metal debris, flat, roughly palm-sized, held it over a still-burning fire in a nearby vehicle until the edge glowed faint red. Then she unbuttoned her blouse, pulled it aside, exposed the wound. The world narrowed to a single point of focus. Her, the metal, the choice. She pressed the hot metal against the wound's edge, used her other hand to probe with the Leatherman blade, felt something hard, foreign, embedded, shrapnel, big piece, deep. Bryn locked her jaw, took 3 quick breaths, then pushed the blade in. Levered, worked the shrapnel fragment free millimeter by millimeter. The pain was transcendent, beyond description, beyond tolerance. Her vision whited out. Her body tried to convulse. She held herself rigid through pure will and the memory of every hard thing she'd ever survived. The shrapnel came free, 3 inches of jagged steel. She tossed it aside, pressed the remaining quick clot gauze into the hole, packed it deep, used the last field dressing to hold it in place. Her hands were steady now, steadier than they'd been all morning. Something cold and sharp had replaced the fear, something that felt like her father's voice in Duke's training in 28 years of refusing to quit. Bryn reached for one of the morphine injectors, stopped. No, she needed to stay sharp, needed to stay angry. Morphine would dull both. She left it. Instead, she used the medical tape to secure everything. Jury-rigged, field expedient, the kind of patch job that would make a surgeon weep, but a SEAL nod in approval. Then she just breathed. In, out, in, out, forcing oxygen into blood that was doing its best to stay inside her body instead of painting the Afghan dirt. 5 minutes, 10. Her heart rate slowed, stabilized, the bleeding reduced to a manageable seep instead of a fatal pour. Bryn opened her eyes fully, looked around with vision that was clearer now, sharper. The kill zone stretched before her, abandoned, silent. 3 destroyed vehicles still smoldering, debris scattered across 100 meters of roadway, and everywhere evidence. Blast patterns, fragmentation marks, impact craters. This wasn't a random ambush. This was planned, coordinated, professional. Bryn forced herself to her feet, used the supply truck for support, started moving. Each step measured, each movement calculated to minimize blood loss and maximize distance. She covered 50 meters, 100, reached the perimeter of the ambush zone, and that's when she saw them. 3 bodies, not American, not Afghan army, wrong uniforms, wrong gear. They lay where they'd fallen, killed in the crossfire of their own ambush. Bryn approached the first one, knelt, ignored the protest from her wounds, examined the body, male, early 30s, Caucasian, clean-shaven, tactical vest marked with no insignia but clearly American-made. Rifle, a Colt M4 variant with high-end optics. Boots, U.S. Army issue, but worn, broken in, the kind contractors wore. She checked his pockets, found a wallet, no ID, just cash, American dollars, and a business card tucked in the billfold. The card was simple, black background, gold lettering, Ares Logistics, Private Military Solutions. Below that, a phone number with a Virginia area code. Bryn stared at the card, at the body wearing American boots, at the evidence of an ambush that had been too precise, too well-timed, too perfectly positioned. And she remembered. Caldwell, on the radio, just before the last chopper lifted off. His voice tight, controlled. Package secured. Cleanup crew will handle witnesses. Not debris, not equipment, witnesses. The cold thing inside Bryn's chest crystallized into something harder than anger, colder than rage. It was the kind of certainty that made decisions simple. Someone sold them out. Someone gave coordinates. Someone orchestrated an ambush and then made sure the survivors, the ones who might ask questions, didn't make it home. And they'd left her alive because they thought she'd bleed out before she could tell anyone. Mistake. Bryn pocketed the business card, took the contractor's radio, a high-end encrypted model, took his spare magazines, took his combat knife. Then she looked north, toward the ridgeline, toward where the convoy would be trying to navigate back to base through territory that hadn't been cleared in months. She didn't have transportation, didn't have backup, didn't have anything except blood-soaked fatigues, borrowed gear, and a promise made over a grave 25 years ago. But she had training, had skill, had 47 confirmed kills, and the kind of anger that made impossible things happen. Bryn checked the tourniquet on her leg, tightened it one more notch, started walking. Behind her, the sun finally crested the horizon, painted the kill zone in shades of gold and crimson, made the blood on her hands look almost beautiful. Ahead, the mountains waited, cold, indifferent, deadly. And somewhere in those mountains, the convoy that left her to die was driving straight into a trap they didn't see coming. Bryn's lips pulled back. Not quite a smile, something colder. "I'm coming," she whispered to the empty air, "and God help anyone who gets in my way." She took one step, then another, each step a defiance, each breath a declaration. They thought she was dead. They thought she was finished. They thought leaving her behind would solve their problem. They were wrong. And before this day ended, they were going to learn exactly how wrong. Part 2. The Hunter. The ridge rose like a broken spine against the morning sky, shale and scrub pine clinging to slopes that hadn't seen rain in months. Every step upward sent loose rock skittering down behind Bryn, small avalanches that sounded too loud in the silence. Her thigh screamed. The tourniquet had gone past uncomfortable into the realm of nerve damage. She'd loosen it in another 20 minutes. Give the tissue some blood flow. Risk the bleeding starting again. No choice. Dead leg was as useless as a dead woman. 300 meters up the slope. Another 200 to go. The sun climbed with her, turning the air hot and thin. Sweat mixed with blood on her uniform. Drew flies. She ignored them. Ignored everything except the rhythm of movement. Step, breathe. Step, breathe. Her mind wanted to wander. Blood loss did that. Made thoughts slippery, hard to hold. She kept pulling herself back, focusing on the mission, on what came next. But Duke's face kept appearing, his eyes meeting hers across the kill zone. The way his mouth formed her name, the punch he threw at Caldwell. 68 years old, and he'd fought them. Fought to stay, fought to get back to her. Bryn's jaw clenched. No, not his fault. Duke would have stayed if they'd let him, would have carried her out himself if his old bones could handle the weight. It was Caldwell, always Caldwell, making calculations with human lives like they were numbers on a spreadsheet, deciding who mattered and who didn't based on metrics that had nothing to do with who'd earned the right to survive. She reached a flat section, stopped, leaned against a boulder that still held the night's cold, checked her wounds. The abdominal dressing was soaked through, dark red, not bright arterial red, just the steady seep of damaged tissue trying to heal and failing. She needed fluids, needed antibiotics, needed a surgical team and 12 hours in recovery. Instead, she had a pilfered radio, a combat knife, and enough anger to power a small city. Bryn pulled the encrypted radio from her belt, turned it on, let it scan frequencies. The contractors had used something outside standard military channels. She needed to find it, needed to hear what they were saying. The radio cycled through static, clicks, brief bursts of chatter in Pashto from Taliban frequencies. More static, then a voice, clear, American, casual. Jackal 6 to Raven 3, status on the cleanup? Bryn's finger froze on the dial. She adjusted slightly, locked onto the frequency. Another voice responded, deeper, older. Raven 3, 3 tangos down in the kill zone. No sign of remaining witnesses. Convoy evacuated clean. Copy that. Phase 2 is green. Secondary ambush positions ready. Grid 47 Bravo. Mortar teams in place. We hit them in 90 minutes. Roger. Jackal 6 confirmed payload delivery afterward? Confirmed. Payment on completion. Boss wants this wrapped clean. No loose ends, no questions. The voices went silent. Bryn stared at the radio, at the small speaker that had just told her everything she needed to know. Secondary ambush. Grid 47 Bravo. 90 minutes. She knew that grid, old Soviet-era minefield that hadn't been cleared. The updated map showed it as safe passage because some desk officer stateside decided removing the warning was cheaper than actually clearing the mines. But the locals knew. The insurgents knew. Anyone who'd spent real time in country knew. And someone had given the convoy a route that went straight through it, into a kill box with mortars positioned on the high ground. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Just 43 men and women driving into a slaughter. including Duke. Bryn pushed off the boulder, started climbing again. Faster now. The pain in her legs shifted from sharp to dull to something that felt like her bone was grinding against itself. She kept moving. The radio crackled again. Different voice, young, nervous. Raven 2 to Jackal 6. Sir? We found something. One of our guys is missing his radio. And there's boot prints, small, heading north. Silence. Then Jackal 6 again. Voice colder now. Size? 8.5, maybe 9. Sir, you think? I think we missed one. Female target from the initial hit. She was KIA per the major. Should we pursue? Another pause. Longer this time. Bryn could almost hear the calculation happening. The risk assessment. Hunt her down versus maintain position for the convoy ambush. Negative. She's bleeding out with no evac and no support. Dead woman walking. We stay on mission, but keep eyes open. If she stumbles into our position, put her down quiet. The radio went silent. Bryn smiled. No humor in it, just teeth and cold purpose. Dead woman walking. They had that part right. Everything else was wrong. She reached into Duke's survival kit, pulled out the braided fishing line. 50 feet of 60-pound test. Started wrapping it around her hand as she climbed. In her other hand, the combat knife. In her mind, a plan forming. Piece by piece, step by step. They thought she was finished. Thought blood loss and shock would do their work for them. They'd never met a woman who'd been stitching her own wounds since she was 8 years old. Who'd learned to turn pain into fuel. Who'd inherited her father's refusal to quit and added her own brand of cold fury to the mix. Bryn reached the ridge crest, dropped low, crawled the last 20 feet on her belly, rifle discipline beaten into her by 1,000 training hours. Peered over the edge. Below, spread across a narrow valley shelf, 8 figures moved with professional efficiency. Mortar tubes, ammunition, spotters with rangefinders, all positioned with clear sight lines down to the road that wound through Grid 4, 7 Bravo. The road where Duke's convoy would be in 75 minutes. Bryn studied the layout. Distance between positions. Fields of fire. Dead ground where she could move unseen. Weak points in their perimeter. She mapped it all. Filed it away. Let her training do what training did best. Turn chaos into tactical problems with tactical solutions. 8 contractors. She had 12 bullets in the pilfered M4 magazine, 4 in her sidearm, 1 combat knife, 1 length of fishing line, and a body that was running on fumes in spite. The math didn't favor her, but math had never stopped her before. She pulled back from the ridge, found a depression in the rock that offered concealment, opened the encrypted radio, switched to the standard military frequency, keyed the mic. Her voice came out rough, damaged, but clear. Convoy Bravo 2, this is Petty Officer Callahan. Grid 4, 7 Bravo is a trap. Repeat, you are heading into an active kill zone. Mortars positioned on high ground. Minefield in the valley. Change route immediately. Static. Long seconds of nothing. Then a voice she recognized, older, gravel and cigarettes in relief so profound it cracked his words. Bryn? Jesus Christ, Bryn, you're alive? Duke. She closed her eyes, just for a second, let herself feel the weight of hearing him, knowing he was still breathing. I'm alive, Colonel, but you won't be if you keep going. 4-7 Bravo is mined, and there are 8 contractors with mortars waiting to bracket you the second you enter the valley. Another voice cut in, sharper, authority carried like a weapon. This is Major Caldwell. Petty Officer, you're disoriented, suffering blood loss. Our intelligence shows 4-7 Bravo is clear. We have updated maps. Your maps are wrong. I'm looking at mortar positions right now. I'm looking at Ares Logistics contractors who were part of the original ambush. Someone sold us out, Major. Someone gave them our route. And someone made sure I got left behind because dead witnesses don't ask questions. That's absurd. You're not thinking clearly. Duke's voice again, harder now, the tone of a man who'd had enough. Caldwell, change the route, now. Colonel, with respect, you're retired. I'm in command of this convoy and she just saved 4 lives while you were busy deciding who was worth a chopper seat. Change the route. Silence. Bryn could picture it. The standoff in whatever vehicle Caldwell was riding. Duke staring him down. Other soldiers listening, deciding who to trust. The officer who left a woman to die or the woman who saved their brothers. A new voice. Young. Familiar. Major Caldwell, sir, this is PFC Hartley. Ma'am, I mean Petty Officer Callahan. She pulled me out of a burning Humvee. She got me to cover while she was bleeding. If she says it's a trap, I believe her. Another voice. Older. Sergeant Drummond here. I'm with the kid. Callahan's solid. And frankly, sir, I'd rather trust a seal on the ground than a map that's been updated by people who've never left a desk. The silence stretched. Bryn imagined Caldwell's face, the math he was doing. Trust the woman he dismissed, or admit his intelligence was compromised. Admit he might have made a mistake. Petty officer, Caldwell's voice tight, controlled. If you're wrong about this, then you can court-martial me after. But I'm not wrong, and you're running out of time. She clicked off, didn't wait for a response. The convoy would change routes, or it wouldn't. Duke would make sure if he could. The younger soldiers would pressure Caldwell if Duke couldn't. All she could do now was buy them time. Make sure the contractors below didn't have a chance to reposition, didn't have a chance to adapt. Bryn checked the tourniquet on her leg, loosened it 3 turns. Blood rushed back into oxygen-starved tissue. The pain was immediate, vicious. She wrote it out, gave it 30 seconds. Tightened the tourniquet again. Not as much, just enough. Then she started moving. Down the ridge, flanking left, using the terrain. A depression here, a cluster of rocks there. Every movement calculated to keep her below the contractor's sightlines. Her leg dragged. The abdominal wound pulled with each step. She ignored both. Compartmentalized. Pain was just information. Information could be managed. She reached a position 300 meters from the nearest mortar team. 2 men, one feeding rounds, one adjusting elevation. They worked with the bored efficiency of professionals who'd done this 100 times before. Bryn settled into a prone position, sighted through the M4's optics. The rifle wasn't her preferred M110 sniper system. Shorter range, less precision, but at 300 meters with no wind, it would do. She controlled her breathing, let her heart rate settle, found the space between beats where the rifle became an extension of her will. Squeezed. The suppressor turned the shot into a harsh cough. The round took the first contractor in the upper chest. Center mass. He dropped without a sound. His partner looked up, confused. Bryn's second shot caught him in the throat. He fell across the mortar tube, blood spraying. 2 down, shouting from the other positions. Contractors scrambling, trying to locate the threat. Bryn was already moving, rolled left, came up 20 meters from where she'd fired, found new cover. The radio on her belt crackled. Jackal 6's voice, not calm anymore, sharp, urgent. All Raven elements, we have active contact. Origin unknown. Weapons free. Find that shooter. Bryn smiled, keyed her stolen radio, imitated the voice she'd heard earlier, the young, nervous one. Raven 2. Contact North Ridge. Multiple tangos. Looks like Taliban reinforcements. She watched the contractors react. Half of them turned north, scanning empty terrain for an enemy that didn't exist. The other half held position, professional enough not to abandon their post completely. Bryn low-crawled 30 meters, came up in a different position. Sighted on the next mortar team. They'd taken cover, smart, but cover that protected from the north exposed them to the east, where she was. Third shot, fourth shot, two more contractors down, four down, four to go. The radio erupted. Jackal 6 screaming orders. Raven elements, consolidate on my position. Now! We're being flanked. They moved, fell back toward a central position, trying to form a defensive perimeter. Textbook response. Exactly what Bryn wanted. She circled. Moved fast now. Faster than was smart with her wounds. But speed was survival. She reached the position they just abandoned. Found what she was looking for. C4 explosive. 3 blocks. Detonators. The contractors had brought demo for follow-up work. Destroying evidence. Covering tracks. Bryn worked fast. Hands steady despite the blood loss. Despite the pain. She rigged the charges. Set them around the consolidated position in a triangle. Used the fishing line from Duke's kit to create a tripwire. Crude, but effective. Then she moved back. Found high ground, keyed the radio again. Different voice this time, older, authoritative. Jackal 6, this is Overwatch. Enemy breaking contact, moving south. Pursue and eliminate. She watched them hesitate. Saw Jackal 6, had to be the one in the center directing the others. Look south. Look at his men. Make a decision. Raven elements, pursuit formation. Don't let them regroup. They moved. Professional. Controlled. Exactly wrong. The lead contractor hit the fishing line. The C4 detonated. Not all at once. Sequential. The first blast threw 2 men into the air. The second caught them landing. The third finished anyone still moving. Silence. Absolute. Final. Bryn waited. 30 seconds. 60. Nothing moved in the kill zone below. She stood, walked down the slope, each step measured, painful, necessary. Reached the edge of the blast zone, confirmed the kills. 7 bodies, 1 missing. Bryn turned, too slow. Blood loss making her reactions a half-second behind where they needed to be. Jackal 6 came out of cover to her right. Not dead, wounded but mobile. He'd been far enough from the blast to survive, smart enough to play dead until she got close. He had his sidearm up, aimed center mass, 40 feet away, too far for her to close, too close to miss. Dead woman walking, he said, voice tight with pain and something that might have been respect. You should have stayed down. Tried that, didn't take. His finger tightened on the trigger. Bryn watched, calculated. No time to draw, no time to dodge, just time to die. Then Duke's voice crackled over her radio, over all their radios, broadcasting on the frequency the contractors were using. Bryn, get down. She dropped. Pure instinct, pure trust. The sound of a .50 caliber rifle is unmistakable, deep, thunderous. The round hit Jackal 6 in the chest and lifted him off his feet. Threw him back 10 feet, dead before he landed. Bryn looked up, scanned the ridge to the west, found the glint of scope glass. A figure prone on the heights, too far to identify, but she knew. Duke. The old man had commandeered a rifle, found a position, made a shot at 800 meters that most men half his age couldn't make. The radio crackled. Duke's voice, shaking. Bryn, status. She keyed her mic. Still dead, still walking. Convoy? Changed route. We're on the southern approach. ETA to your position, 20 minutes. Can you hold that long? Bryn looked at her wounds, at the blood soaking through every dressing, at the way her vision was starting to tunnel at the edges. 20 minutes. I can do 20 minutes. That's my girl. The radio went quiet. Bryn sat down. Not because she wanted to, because her legs stopped supporting her weight and sitting was better than collapsing. She leaned against a rock, closed her eyes, just for a second, just to rest. Cole Hartley's face appeared in her mind. 19 years old and terrified, blood on his cheeks, eyes wide. Bryn's eyes opened. She checked her watch. 17 minutes until the convoy arrived. No, sleep was dangerous. Sleep was how you didn't wake up. She forced herself to stand, staggered to the nearest contractor body, searched it, found water, drank, found a medical kit, better than hers, actual IV bags, antibiotics, real dressings. Her hands worked automatically, changed dressings, added antibiotics from the contractor's kit, the kind of maintenance that kept soldiers alive between medevacs, enough to buy another hour, maybe two. She sat again, this time chose it. Controlled descent instead of collapse. Checked her watch. 12 minutes. The sun was high now. Hot. The kind of heat that made everything shimmer. Made distances uncertain. Made reality feel negotiable. Bryn's mind drifted. She pulled it back. Focused on her breathing. In. Out. In. Out. Thought about Mogadishu. About her father dying in a city half a world away. Thought about Duke punching Caldwell. About Cole Hartley's face. About 43 people who were alive because she'd refused to die quietly. 8 minutes. The sound of engines. Distant, but growing closer. She reached for her rifle. Stopped. They were friendlies. Had to be. But her hand stayed on the weapon anyway. Just in case. 4 minutes. Duke's voice crackled over her radio. Private frequency. Bryn, I've got Overwatch. Found a Barrett M82 in one of the Humvees, 800 meters west of your position. If things go sideways, I've got your back. She keyed back. You sure you remember how to shoot that far, old man? Kid, I was making impossible shots when your father was in diapers. Just don't do anything stupid. Too late. His laugh was dry, tired. Yeah, I figured. 2 minutes. The convoy appeared. 6 Humvees, moving fast, dust trails behind them. They stopped 200 meters out. Cautious, smart, could be a trap. Duke's voice on the radio. Bryn, we see you. You alone? 8 contractors, all dead, position secure. We're coming to you. The lead Humvee approached, stopped 50 feet away. Doors opened, soldiers spilled out, weapons ready, scanning for threats. Duke was with them, shoulder wrapped, moving stiff, but moving. He saw her, started forward. Behind him, Major Caldwell emerged, face pale, eyes scanning the carnage, the bodies, the blast craters. 8 contractors eliminated by 1 wounded SEAL. Duke reached Bryn first, dropped to his knees beside her. His eyes scanned her wounds, the blood, the field dressings. His face went hard. Jesus, Bryn, how are you still conscious? Stubborn, Dad's side of the family. He laughed, sharp, almost a sob. I tried to stay, Caldwell. I know, not your fault. She looked past him, at Caldwell standing 20 feet away. Major, interesting maps you're using. Caldwell said nothing, just stared. Duke's hand found hers, squeezed. Medic, now! 2 combat medics ran forward. Different ones, had to be from another unit that joined the convoy. They worked with professional efficiency. No recognition, no judgment, just medicine. But Bryn saw one of the original medics, standing 20 feet back, young face pale, watching, not helping. He met her eyes for 1 second, then looked away. Good. Let him live with it. 4th line in her arm, fluids flowing, antibiotics, pain medication she tried to refuse until Duke growled at her to take it. Cole Hartley appeared, arm in a sling, leg bandaged, his young face tight with emotion. Ma'am, you saved us. Again. That's the job, Cole. No, ma'am. The job is staying alive. You... His voice broke. Thank you. Other soldiers gathered. Sergeant Drummond, Corporal Bailey in a wheelchair. Others whose names she didn't know, but whose faces she'd seen in the kill zone. They stood in a loose semicircle, silent, watching. Duke helped Bryn to her feet. She swayed. He caught her, held her steady. 23 years I've been retired, Duke said quietly. Watched a lot of operators, a lot of heroes. But what you did today, He shook his head. Your father would be proud. He taught me everything important. No, he started the teaching, but you finished it yourself. Duke looked at the contractors, at the evidence of a one-woman war waged and won. They left you. You came back, saved them anyway. That's not training, that's character. Bryn's legs gave out. Duke lowered her to sitting, gentle. The medics moved in, started packaging her for transport. As they worked, Bryn's hand found the pocket where she'd stowed the Ares Logistics business card. She pulled it out, held it up so Caldwell could see. Found this on one of the contractors, along with his encrypted radio, and a whole lot of recorded conversations about payments, about coordinated ambushes, about someone in our chain of command who made sure this went exactly as planned. Caldwell's face went from pale to gray. I don't know what you think you heard. I think I heard enough for a court-martial, maybe treason charges. Bryn's vision was fading, the morphine and blood loss catching up. But her voice stayed clear. I think I heard a logistics officer who sold 43 soldiers for contractor money. I think I heard the man who left me to die because dead witnesses don't testify. Duke stood, turned to face Caldwell. His hand moved to his sidearm, not drawing, just resting there. Major Caldwell, you're under arrest. Treason, attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder of U.S. military personnel. You have no authority. I have a radio and a direct line to JSOC and about 40 soldiers who just watched this woman save their lives after you abandoned her. Duke's voice dropped, cold, final. And if you reach for your weapon, I will put you down myself and sleep like a baby tonight. Caldwell looked around, at the soldiers, at their faces. No support there, just anger. Just judgment. He raised his hands slowly. Two sergeants moved forward. One started zip-tying Caldwell's wrists. Caldwell's face twisted, rage replacing fear. His hands shot toward the sidearm on the sergeant's belt beside him, fingers closing on the grip. If I'm going down, Caldwell yanked the pistol free, swung it toward Duke. You're coming with me, old man. Time slowed. Bryn saw it happening. Saw Duke's eyes widen, saw his hand move for his own weapon. Too slow, too old, too wounded. She didn't think. Her hand found the M9 on her hip, drew, aimed. One motion, the shot echoed across the valley. Caldwell's pistol flew from his hand. Her bullet had taken him through the wrist. Clean, precise, the kind of shot that required zero thought and infinite training. Caldwell screamed, dropped to his knees, clutching his shattered wrist. Duke stared at her, at the smoking pistol in her hand, at the woman who just saved his life from 15 feet away while barely conscious. 12 shots, Bryn said quietly, her hand lowered. The pistol dropped into the dirt. 12 kills, 1 save. Now we're even, Colonel. Duke's laugh was half sob. Even? Kid, I'll never be even with you. The sergeants grabbed Caldwell, zip-tied his good hand to his ruined one, dragged him away screaming about court-martials and illegal discharge of weapons. Nobody cared. 43 soldiers had watched Bryn Callahan save a life one more time, and that was all that mattered. The medics lifted her onto a stretcher, started carrying her to the medevac chopper that was inbound. She could hear the rotors, distant but growing closer. Duke walked beside her, holding her hand. Bryn, stay with me. We're almost done. Not done yet, Colonel. Still have to testify. Have to make sure. You will, but right now you rest. That's an order. You're retired. Can't give me orders. Then it's a request. From an old man who doesn't want to tell your father I let his daughter die. Bryn smiled, felt herself slipping. Let it happen. For the first time in 20 hours, let herself stop fighting. Stop calculating. Stop surviving. Tell Dad I kept the promise. He knows. He's been watching, and he's proud. The medevac landed. They loaded her aboard. Duke climbed in beside her. refused to leave even when the medics said there wasn't enough room. As the chopper lifted, Bryn looked out the open door, at the kill zone below, at the contractors she'd eliminated, at the convoy of soldiers standing at attention, watching her rise. 43 lives, saved by a woman they'd left to die. The math had worked out after all. Her eyes closed. This time she let them stay closed. Behind her, Duke's voice, quiet, certain. Sleep, kid. You've earned it. The darkness came, but it wasn't cold, wasn't frightening. It felt like her father's arms, like Duke's approval, like every hard thing she'd ever survived coming together into one moment of peace. Part 3, The Reckoning. The ceiling was white, sterile, acoustic tiles with small perforations that formed patterns if you stared long enough. Bryn had been staring for 3 days. Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, Bethesda, Maryland. 7,000 miles from the ridge where she'd made her stand. 7,000 miles from the kill zone where they'd left her bleeding. But the distance didn't matter, because the fight wasn't over. Her room was private, second floor, window overlooking a courtyard where wounded soldiers learned to walk again on prosthetic legs. She'd watched them for hours, their determination, their refusal to accept limitation. It reminded her why she was still breathing. The doctors had been blunt. 2 liters of blood lost, perforated intestine, torn femoral artery, severe tissue damage from the tourniquet, infection from field conditions. She should have died 6 different ways before the medevac reached her. Should have. Didn't. They'd operated twice. 18 hours of surgery across 2 days. Cleaned the wounds. Repaired what could be repaired. Told her she'd walk again, but probably never run. Definitely never deploy. She'd smiled at that last part. Let them think she agreed. The door opened. Duke Maddox stepped in. He moved better now, the shoulder wound healing clean. But he'd aged in the past week. New lines around his eyes. A heaviness in his shoulders that hadn't been there before. He carried a folder, thick, manila, the kind that held classified documents and career-ending evidence. You're awake. Not a question. Duke had a way of knowing things. Can't sleep, keep seeing their faces. The contractors? The medics, the ones who left me. Bryn shifted in the bed. Pain rippled through her abdomen. She breathed through it. I keep thinking, what if Cole had been the one left behind? What if it was Drummond? Would they have done the same? Duke pulled a chair close. Saturday. The folder rested on his lap. I've been asking myself similar questions. Been asking them for 3 days while lawyers crawled through every second of what happened. Caldwell? In a cell at Quantico. JAG has enough on him to guarantee a court-martial. Maybe a firing squad if they want to make an example. Duke opened the folder. Your radio recordings, the evidence you collected, the business card, it all ties back to Ares Logistics. Turns out they've been running a scheme for 2 years. Create instability, orchestrate ambushes, then profit from the rescue operations and increased security contracts. How many? 7 incidents we can prove, probably more we can't. 14 American soldiers killed, 30 wounded. Also, a private company could pad their revenue and a corrupt logistics officer could pocket $300,000. Bryn's hands clenched the bedsheet. $300,000. That's the price. That's what we're worth. That's what Caldwell thought you were worth. He was wrong. Duke pulled papers from the folder. Photographs, after-action reports, statements. Every soldier on that convoy gave testimony. Cole Hartley, Jack Drummond, Lauren Bailey. 43 statements saying the same thing. You saved them. Multiple times. And they're demanding you get recognized for it. I don't want recognition. I want them court-martialed. The medics. The ones who decided I wasn't worth saving. Duke's jaw tightened. That's complicated. How is it complicated? They left a wounded SEAL because they didn't think I mattered. because they were following protocol. Sort by combat effectiveness. Prioritize fighting personnel. It's standard triage doctrine in mass casualty situations. Duke held up a hand before Bryn could interrupt. I'm not saying they were right. I'm saying they had cover. They followed the book. The book was wrong. But proving negligence versus following orders is bullshit. Yes, it is. But it's also reality. Duke leaned forward. Bryn, you can fight this. Push for their court-martial. Spend the next 2 years in hearings and investigations. Probably win. Definitely destroy your career in the process. Or what? Or you let me handle it. I've got 30 years of connections, people who owe me favors. I can make sure those medics never advance, never get good postings, spend their careers in places that make Afghanistan look pleasant. Quiet punishment, effective, and it lets you move on. Bryn stared at the ceiling tiles, counted the perforations. My father would have pushed for the court-martial. Your father died pushing against a system that didn't value the fight he was in, pushing against politicians who didn't understand sacrifice. Duke's voice softened. He was right to push, but he's not here to see the result. You are, and you get to decide, do you spend your life fighting the system, or do you use what you learn to change it from inside? The door opened again. A Navy commander entered, full dress uniform, ribbons covering his chest, face professionally neutral. Petty Officer Callahan, I'm Commander Hendricks, JAG Corps. I need to brief you on several matters related to your upcoming testimony and the charges being filed against Major Caldwell. Duke stood. I'll step outside. Actually, Colonel, you should stay. This concerns you as well. Hendricks pulled up a second chair, opened his own folder. First, the easy part. Major Vincent Caldwell is being charged with conspiracy to commit murder, accepting bribes, treason, and 14 counts of manslaughter. Your recorded evidence is the cornerstone of the prosecution. We'll need you to testify, probably multiple times. The trial starts in 6 months. I'll be there. Good. Second matter, the contractors. Ares Logistics is being investigated by the FBI. The Justice Department is pursuing RICO charges. Criminal conspiracy. But here's the problem. The 8 contractors you eliminated in Afghanistan, they were American citizens, former military. And while your actions were clearly justified self-defense and defense of others, there are political elements pushing for complications. Bryn's stomach went cold. Complications. Congress is involved. Certain members are asking questions about proportional response, about whether a single SEAL eliminating 8 contractors without backup or authorization represents appropriate use of force. Hendricks held up a hand. The Pentagon is backing you completely, so is JSOC, so is every SEAL team in the Navy, but politics doesn't care about operational reality. Duke's voice cut through like a blade. They're trying to charge her. No, not yet. Not officially, but there's pressure from defense contractors, from certain senators whose campaigns receive significant donations from private military companies. They want to make an example, show that even special operations personnel can't act with impunity. She was abandoned. She saved 43 lives. She exposed a conspiracy that killed 14 Americans. And they want to prosecute her? Duke stood, violence barely contained. Over my dead body. Colonel, I agree with you. The entire military legal system agrees with you. But we need to be smart, which brings me to the third matter. Hendricks turned to Bryn. The Navy wants to award you the Navy Cross, second highest military decoration, for extraordinary heroism in combat. The ceremony would be public. Press coverage, congressional attendance. It's a preemptive strike. Award you before anyone can seriously push for charges. Bryn's head spun. Navy Cross. Her father had been nominated for one, died before it could be awarded. They'd given it to her mother at his funeral. She'd been 13, hadn't understood what it meant. Now she did. When? 2 weeks. You'll be mobile by then. Mostly. It'll hurt, but you can stand for the ceremony. We need you standing. Need you in uniform. Need every camera in America seeing the woman who survived impossible odds and saved dozens of lives. Political theater. Yes, but effective theater. The kind that makes it career suicide for anyone to come after you. Hendrik stood. I know you don't want to be a symbol. You want to be a SEAL. But right now, being a symbol is how you stay a SEAL. Do this. Smile for the cameras, accept the medal, and then we make damn sure Caldwell and everyone involved goes to prison for the rest of their miserable lives. He left. The door clicked shut. Silence filled the room like water filling a well. Duke sat back down. Your call, Bryn, but for what it's worth, I think you should do it. Not for the politics, for the 43. They deserve to see you recognized. Cole especially. That kid talks about you like you're Captain America and Joan of Arc combined. Despite everything, Bryn smiled. He's 19. Everything seems larger than life at 19. Maybe, or maybe he sees clearly what the rest of us miss because we're too cynical to believe in heroes anymore. Duke reached into his jacket, pulled out something small, wrapped in cloth. Speaking of which, I found this in your father's effects. Your mother gave it to me after his funeral. Asked me to hold on to it until you earned your trident. Then forgot I had it. Getting old. Memory's not what it was. He unwrapped the cloth. Inside, a silver coin. Custom made. One side showed the sealed trident. The other, words engraved in simple block letters. For Bryn, when you do the impossible, love, Dad. Her father's handwriting, his words, preserved in metal because he'd known, even before she knew, that someday she'd need to see them. Bryn's vision blurred. She blinked hard, took the coin. It was warm from Duke's pocket, or maybe from the memory it carried. He had this made a month before Mogadishu, Duke said quietly. Showed it to me. Said his daughter was going to be something special. Said she'd probably be the first female SEAL if the Navy ever got smart enough to allow it. I told him he was dreaming. Women couldn't pass the physical standards. What did he say? He said standards were just numbers, and his daughter was going to change what numbers meant. Duke's eyes were wet. He didn't hide it. He was right, about all of it. Bryn closed her fist around the coin, held it so tight the edges bit into her palm. The pain felt good, real, anchoring. I'll do it, the ceremony, the medal, all of it. Good. But Duke, when it's over, when the trial's finished and the cameras go away, I'm going back. Back where? Back to the teams, back to the fight. They think I'm done, think one injury is enough to sideline me. They're wrong. Duke smiled, hard, proud. Your father would say the same thing, probably did say it, right before he walked into Mogadishu. He stood, headed for the door, stopped. But Bryn, this time you don't go alone. This time you've got an entire generation of operators who know what you did, who saw you fight. They won't let you get left behind again. He left. Bryn was alone again with the white ceiling and the coin in her hand. She thought about her father, about Duke, about Cole Hartley's face when he said thank you, about the contractors she'd killed, about Caldwell's gray face when Duke arrested him, about the choice in front of her. Be the symbol they needed, or be the warrior she wanted to be. Maybe she could be both. 2 weeks passed like 2 years. Physical therapy every day, learning to walk without limping, building back strength the surgeries had stolen, ignoring the doctors who said, slow down, ignoring the pain that said, stop. She walked 3 miles the day before the ceremony, slow, agonizing, but she walked. Because walking meant fighting, and fighting meant she wasn't finished. The morning of the ceremony broke cold and clear. December in Washington, the kind of crisp air that made breathing hurt and made everything sharp. Duke picked her up at 0600, dress blues uniform. Every ribbon earned, every medal placed precisely according to regulation. Her hair pulled back severe, face clean. The only makeup she wore was the determination in her eyes. They drove to the Pentagon in silence, comfortable, the kind two warriors shared when words weren't necessary. The ceremony was in the Hall of Heroes, a room lined with names, Medal of Honor recipients, the best of the best, the ones who'd gone beyond duty into legend. Bryn walked in and stopped. The room was full, not just brass and politicians, soldiers, sailors, Marines, all in dress uniforms, all standing at attention. She recognized faces. Cole Hartley in the front row, arm healed, standing tall. Jack Drummond beside him. Lauren Bailey in her wheelchair, right hand held in salute. Every soldier from the convoy, all 43. They'd come, taken leave, traveled across the country to be here, to see this. Her throat closed. She forced it open, walked forward, each step measured, no limp, no hesitation, even though every movement felt like her abdomen was tearing open again. The Chief of Naval Operations stood at the podium, 4 stars, the top. Admiral Catherine Brennan, first female CNO, someone who'd fought her own battles to get where she was. Petty Officer First Class Bryn Callahan, front and center. Bryn marched forward, stopped at attention, stared straight ahead, not at the Admiral, at the wall beyond, at the names of heroes who'd come before. Admiral Brennan opened a blue case. Inside, the Navy Cross, silver, heavy. It caught the light and threw it back sharper. The President of the United States takes pleasure in presenting the Navy Cross to Petty Officer First Class Bryn Callahan, United States Navy, for extraordinary heroism while serving with SEAL Team 4 during combat operations in Afghanistan. The Admiral's voice was strong, clear. It filled the room and pushed back against every doubt Bryn had ever carried about whether she belonged. On the specified date, Petty Officer Callahan distinguished herself through extraordinary heroism and selfless dedication to her fellow service members. After being severely wounded while rescuing 4 soldiers from a burning vehicle, Petty Officer Callahan was denied medical evacuation and abandoned in an active combat zone. A ripple moved through the room, quiet, angry, the kind of collective rage that came from warriors hearing about betrayal. Despite catastrophic injuries, Petty Officer Callahan rendered self-aid, tracked enemy forces, and single-handedly eliminated 8 hostile combatants who were preparing to ambush her convoy. She then navigated hostile terrain to provide intelligence that prevented a mass casualty event and saved the lives of 43 American service members. The Admiral paused. Let the weight of those words settle. Petty Officer Callahan's actions reflect the highest traditions of military service and demonstrate extraordinary courage under fire. She is the embodiment of the SEAL ethos: never quit, never leave a fallen comrade, and complete the mission no matter the cost. Admiral Brennan lifted the medal, stepped forward, pinned it to Bryn's uniform, right over her heart, over the trident scar that marked her as one of the few, the proud, the SEALs. Well done, Petty Officer. Thank you, ma'am. The room erupted. Not polite applause, thunder. 43 soldiers on their feet, screaming, shouting. Cole Hartley had tears streaming down his face. Duke stood in the back, fist raised. Even the politicians looked moved. Bryn stood at attention. Let it wash over her. The sound, the recognition, the moment where everything she'd survived became validated. But it wasn't the ceremony that mattered. It was what came after. The reception was at a hotel in Arlington, formal, uncomfortable. Bryn spent 2 hours shaking hands with generals and senators who wanted their picture taken with her, smiling until her face hurt, being the symbol they needed. Finally, she escaped, found a balcony overlooking the Potomac. Cold air, silence, peace. Footsteps behind her. She turned, Expected Duke. Found someone else. Former Major, Vincent Caldwell. In civilian clothes. Hands cuffed in front of him. 2 MPs flanking him. Face hollow. Broken. What is this? Bryn's hand went to her hip, where her sidearm would be if she was carrying. She wasn't. He's supposed to be in a cell. One of the MPs stepped forward, young, apologetic. Ma'am, the prisoner requested to speak with you. JAG approved it. Supervised contact only. We can remove him if... No, Bryn's voice was ice. Let him speak. This should be interesting. Caldwell moved to the railing, didn't look at her, stared at the water instead. I wanted to say I'm sorry. You wanted to say you're sorry. Bryn's laugh was bitter. You left me to die. You sold our position to contractors. You got 14 Americans killed for money. And you want to say you're sorry? I know it doesn't. I know there's nothing I can say that makes it right. You're correct, there isn't. I didn't, Caldwell's voice broke. I didn't think you'd survive. I thought leaving you I thought it was a mercy. Quick death instead of bleeding out slow. A mercy? Bryn stepped closer, close enough to see the fear in his eyes. You want to know about mercy? Cole Hartley showed me mercy when he believed me over you. Jack Drummond showed me mercy when he pressured you to change routes. Duke Maddox showed me mercy when he fought to stay with me. You showed cowardice. I know. Do you? Do you know what it feels like to be conscious while medics walk past? To hear them discuss whether you're worth the supplies? To watch the last chopper lift off while you're bleeding into the dirt? Bryn's fists clenched. You made a calculation, decided I was expendable. And I want you to understand something. I survived because you were wrong. About me, about what women can do, about what SEALs are made of. Caldwell finally looked at her, tears on his face, real, pathetic. I just wanted you to know. I see it now. What I did, what I cost. And when they put me in front of that firing squad, because they will, I'll be thinking about you. About how you were better than all of us. I don't want your thoughts. I want you to serve as a warning to every officer who thinks they can leave someone behind because they don't fit the profile. Every commander who thinks women are liabilities. Every person who confuses gender with capability. Bryn leaned in. Your punishment isn't the firing squad. It's knowing you created the very thing you feared. A female SEAL who's more competent, more dedicated, and more heroic than you could ever dream of being. She turned to the MPs. Get him out of my sight. They led Caldwell away. He went quietly, shoulders slumped, already a ghost. Bryn stayed on the balcony, hands gripping the railing, shaking, not from cold, from rage that had nowhere left to go. That was kind of you, Duke's voice. He'd been inside, watching through the glass. You could have spit on him, shouted, made him suffer more. He's already suffering, and I'm not kind. I'm practical. Caldwell's not the disease, he's a symptom. The disease is a system that makes men like him possible. And you're going to cure it? I'm going to try. Duke moved beside her, stared at the same water, the same city. There's something you should know. The medics, the ones who left you. I made some calls, used those favors I mentioned. And they've been reassigned, Alaska, remote posting, minimum support. They'll spend the next 3 years treating frostbite and boredom. No advancement, no recognition, career dead end. Duke glanced at her. It's not a court-martial, but it's punishment. Quiet, effective, and it sends a message. Fail your brothers and sisters in arms, pay the price. Bryn nodded, felt something in her chest loosen. Not forgiveness, not quite, but closure. The beginning of it. Thank you. Don't thank me. You earned it. Everything. The medal, the recognition, the revenge. Duke pulled something from his pocket. An envelope, official, sealed. This came this morning. Your new orders. Bryn opened it, read, felt her pulse quicken. Instructor assignment, SEAL qualification training, teaching the next generation of SEALs. First female instructor in the program's history. They want me to train them? They want you to make sure the next generation doesn't leave anyone behind, that they understand capability matters more than gender, that they've got a living example of what right looks like. Duke smiled. You're not going back to combat, not yet, but you're going back to the fight. Different battlefield, same war. Bryn stared at the orders, thought about her father, about the promise she'd made over his grave, about Cole Hartley's face, about 43 soldiers who'd stood in that room today because she refused to quit. I'll do it. I know you will. You're your father's daughter, and he raised hell on 2 continents. You're going to raise it on 3. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the river flow, watching the city lights come on as darkness settled. 2 warriors at the end of one battle, preparing for the next. Duke? Yeah? Thank you for the coin, for the kit, for believing my father when he said I'd be something. I didn't believe him. Not really. I thought he was a proud father seeing things that weren't there. Duke looked at her, really looked, seeing not just the SEAL, not just the hero, seeing the woman who'd sewn her own wounds and saved 43 lives because quitting wasn't in her vocabulary. I was wrong. He saw exactly what you were, what you'd become, and I'm sorry I doubted. You made up for it. That shot, 800 meters on Jackal 6, that was necessary. I wasn't letting him kill you, not after everything. Duke's voice hardened. You're going to do great things, Bryn. Change the whole system, make it better. But remember, it's going to fight back. Systems don't change easy. People don't give up power without a struggle. I'm ready. I know you are. Just promise me something. What? Don't do it alone. Your father tried to change things alone. It killed him. You've got 43 soldiers who'd follow you into hell. You've got every female service member watching and hoping. You've got me. Don't try to carry it all yourself. Bryn thought about that, about the weight she'd been carrying, the promise to her father, the need to prove herself, the anger at being left behind. Maybe Duke was right. Maybe the strongest thing she could do was let others share the load. I promise. Good. Duke headed for the door. Now come inside. Cole wants to introduce you to his mother, and Jack Drummond wants you to meet his kids. And about 30 other soldiers want to shake your hand and tell you stories about how badass you are. You're a hero, Bryn. Might as well enjoy it for one night. She followed him inside, into warmth, into noise, into a room full of people who saw her not as a woman or a symbol, but as a SEAL. One of them, one of the few, the proud. Cole Hartley saw her first, ran over like an excited kid. Ma'am, this is my mom. Mom, this is Petty Officer Callahan, the one I told you about. A woman in her 40s, tear-streaked face, grabbed Bryn's hands before Bryn could react. Thank you for bringing my boy home. Thank you for... Her voice failed, just held Bryn's hands, squeezed. Bryn squeezed back. He's a good soldier. He'll make a good man. He already is, because of you. More people, more stories. Drummond's kids, 3 girls, ages 6 to 12, all wanting to know if she was a real ninja. Bailey introducing her fiancé, who thanked Bryn with a handshake that lasted too long and words that came too fast. An hour passed. 2. Bryn's leg ached. Her abdomen throbbed. But she stayed, listened, smiled, let herself be human for a few hours. Then Duke found her again. Someone else wants to see you. Outside. Parking lot. Bryn followed him, curious. Who could be left? In the parking lot, a figure stood beside a black SUV. Tall, lean, older woman, silver hair, face that looked familiar but Bryn couldn't place. Then the woman turned, and Bryn's breath stopped. Her mother, Catherine Callahan. She hadn't seen her in 3 years. Not since the fight. The screaming match about Bryn joining the SEALs, about following her father into danger, about throwing away her life. Mom? Catherine moved forward, slow, hesitant. I saw the ceremony on TV. They broadcast it live, and she stopped, started again. I was wrong. About everything. About you. About what you were capable of. About, her voice cracked. I was afraid. Afraid of losing you like I lost your father. So I pushed you away. Made you think I didn't support you. But Bryn, Bryn closed the distance, wrapped her arms around her mother, felt Catherine collapse into the embrace, sobbing. 28 years of fear and pride and love pouring out. I'm so proud of you, Catherine whispered. Your father would be so proud. You did exactly what he hoped. You became everything he knew you could be. I'm sorry I didn't call. Sorry I let 3 years pass. Don't apologize. You were busy becoming a hero. I was busy being afraid. But I'm done being afraid. I'm ready to be your mother again, if you'll let me. Bryn pulled back, looked at her mother's face, saw her father in the lines around her eyes, saw forgiveness in the tears, saw love that had never left, even when words had failed. I'd like that. They stood together, mother and daughter, warrior and worrier, two halves of the same legacy. Duke watched from a distance, smiling. Then he turned away, gave them privacy. The moment was theirs, earned through survival and sacrifice and the refusal to let pain define them. 6 months later, SEAL qualification training, Coronado, California. Bryn stood on the beach, same beach where she'd met Duke, same water, same wind, but everything different. Behind her, 40 candidates, all male, all wondering what a female instructor could possibly teach them, all about to find out. My name is Petty Officer First Class Callahan. Some of you might recognize that name from the news, from the ceremony, from the story about the woman who got left behind and saved 43 soldiers anyway. She let that settle, watched their faces. Some curious, some skeptical, some already dismissive. I'm here to teach you something they don't put in the manuals, something your other instructors won't tell you because they learned it the way I did, bleeding in the dirt while people walked past. She stepped forward, close enough they could see the scar on her abdomen, visible below the edge of her PT shirt, red, raised, permanent. I'm here to teach you that every person on your team matters. That capability isn't determined by gender or size or what you look like. That the weakest link in your chain is the prejudice you carry. And that if you ever leave someone behind because they don't fit your idea of what a warrior looks like, you're not a SEAL. You're a coward. Silence. Absolute. The kind that came from truth spoken without apology. Some of you won't make it through this training. That's fine. Expected. But the ones who do, you'll leave here understanding one thing. We don't leave people behind. Not the wounded, not the tired, not the ones you don't think measure up. Because the person you leave behind might be the one who saves your life when everyone else has given up. She turned, started walking toward the obstacle course. Now drop and give me 50. And while you're counting, think about this. I did 100 this morning, with a Purple Heart and a Navy Cross. What's your excuse? They dropped, started counting. Bryn watched, corrected form, pushed the ones who slacked, encouraged the ones who struggled. And she smiled, because this was the fight Duke had talked about. This was how systems changed. One class at a time, one mind at a time, one generation learning from the mistakes of the last. Her father had died trying to change the military from inside. She would succeed, not because she was stronger, not because she was smarter, but because she'd survived what should have killed her. And survival was the most powerful teacher of all. The sun climbed higher, the candidates sweated. Bryn pushed them harder, and somewhere in the back of her mind she heard her father's voice from that morning 20 years ago when she'd skinned her knee. Someday you're gonna hurt worse than this, Bryn. And when that day comes, remember, you already survived the worst. Everything after is just practice. She was. They would be. And together they'd build something better than what came before. Bryn Callahan had been left to die, had survived, had saved 43 lives, had earned the second highest military decoration, had exposed corruption, had become the symbol her father always knew she'd be. But this? Teaching the next generation, making sure no one else got left behind. This was her real mission, her true purpose. And she was just getting started. The candidates finished their push-ups, collapsed on the sand, breathing hard, wondering what fresh hell came next. Bryn stood over them, hands on her hips, voice carrying over the crash of waves. Welcome to SEAL training. Welcome to the hardest thing you'll ever do. And welcome to the lesson your predecessors learned too late. In this program, we're all brothers and sisters. We all matter. We all fight. We all survive together, or we fail together. She pointed at the water. Oceans waiting. Time to see who you really are. They ran. 40 candidates charging into the Pacific. Cold water, brutal surf, the kind of pain that separated those who could from those who couldn't. Bryn watched them go. Didn't follow, not yet. Her body wasn't ready for that. Might never be ready again. But it didn't matter, because she'd already proven everything she needed to prove. And now she'd spend the rest of her career making sure the next generation proved it too. Duke appeared beside her. He came every week, watched, advised, refused to stay away even though he was 68 and retired and had earned the right to rest. They look good, he said. They look soft. Give me 3 months. They'll either look great or they'll ring out. Your father said the same thing once, about his first class of new guys. Duke smiled, said most of them would quit. The ones who didn't would be legends. He was right. He usually was. So are you. Duke looked at her, at the medals she wore even in PT gear, at the scars visible on her arms and legs, at the woman who'd survived impossible odds and come back stronger. Your father would be proud, Bryn, and I'm honored I got to see you become what he always knew you'd be. What's that? Unstoppable. They stood together, watching the candidates fight the surf, watching the sun climb higher, watching the beginning of something new. The candidates emerged from the water, shivering, exhausted, changed. Bryn smiled, started walking toward them. The real work was just beginning, and she couldn't wait.